And my mother had girls, one after the other, 7 of them, before they had a boy. And the women around and my father's relatives kept saying to him, "You've got to marry somebody else." Because you look at those children and how eager they are to learn. And you know you'll do anything possible to make that learning continue. The way to grow a country is by those who have a little extra sharing it. I was born at Tumutumu in Mathera, in Nyeri district, on the 12th of May, 1944.
So yes. This year you are
80. So I was 80 years old this year.
Okay. Happy belated birthday. I need to say that.
Thank you, thank you.
All right. How was your family back then?
I was brought up by, my parents had gone to school. And they were Christians. My father was an elder in the church, although he started by being a chief in the colonial government. It was a strict discipline based on Christian values. We did the chores that everybody did in those days. You cooked. We went down to the river. We had a river that was down about a few yards away from home. We looked after our relatives. I remember my father's home was always full of people because, if you had a little money and you had extra food, then you fed the community around you. So I was brought up by people who believed in the education of boys and girls. So my father was very, very particular about us all getting some form of education.
Okay. Yes. Now, because you have mentioned about all of you getting some form of education, can you tell us the extra mile she had to go so that his girls would get that education?
Luckily, we were within the mission, and everybody around us, really practically everybody, was going to school at the time that I was going to school. So it was not unusual. There was no boys and girls in our family in the Christian homes. If you are born in that kind of home, whether you're a boy or you're a girl, you went to school.
Okay. Yeah. And back then, what were your dreams? Like, what did you want to become? Did you have a dream of being here where you are?
Goodness. Because our experience of a good life was looking at the white people that were teaching us, that served as an example of where we wanted to be and where we wanted to go. I knew that with a good education, I'll be able to get a job, I would be able to be independent. My father was very, very particular about having his girls become independent. So they had jobs, they earned their own money, so they were not dependent, on men. That's a kind of background that I was brought under. That You're going to go to school, you're going to find a job, whether you're going to be a nurse or you're going to be a teacher, you're going to earn your own money. And you're going to do what you want with that money, instead of waiting to be given.
Yes. That's beautiful. And how many siblings were you?
Many. My father had 2 wives before my mother. And every one of them, the first one died during childbirth and left a little boy called Elam Kavinga. The second one died during childbirth also and left no child. And now my mother was the third one. And even to get married to my mother, there was a myth in the community that if you wanted to die quickly as a woman, you married Francis Kivu, because every wife he married died. But my mother, because she was a very strong Christian, looked beyond the traditional ways of life at that time and went ahead and married him. And then it was so important for a family for a mother to have a boy child. And my mother had girls, one after the other, 7 of them, before they had a boy, and the women around and my father's relatives kept saying to him, "You got to marry somebody else because this woman is not giving you sons." But he persisted, and eventually the 8th born and the 9th and the 10th were boys. Yes,
that's beautiful. All right. What was your educational background from? Let's start from high school, or better, anyway, it had a different name. To when now you started being aware of the career you wanted to do?
I was, I think, aware of the career I wanted to be. I wanted to be like my mother, and my mother was a teacher. But apart from being a teacher, she worked with the Red Cross, and she was very particular about community welfare. And in fact, was employed by the Red Cross to train women on how to better take care of their children. It was during the time that there was a lot of malnutrition in the society. So her work was to go around and speak to the women, tell them how to feed their children, tell them how to live a hygienic life, because that was a challenge at that time. So the only thing I knew is I was going to be a teacher somehow. Yeah. So
you went and did education, and then you
get good education and then become a teacher. Okay. And in fact, most of my sisters who are older than me are teachers.
So you became a teacher, right?
I became a teacher. Eventually, I became a teacher.
Okay.
After trying a few other things.
Yeah. All right. So before we go back to where you were trying a few other things, which subjects were you teaching and which level of school?
High school. I was teaching secondary school. I taught at Kagumo High School for 5 years. I taught history and I taught English. Yes. And then from there, I went to Kagumo College and I taught trained teachers again on how to, and those were still my subjects, the history and the English. And then from there, that's when I then went and, started a kindergarten and went down to teaching the little ones.
How would you compare? Because you've taught adults, you've taught young adults and children. How would you compare the experiences? It
was easier to teach secondary school children, especially in those days, because we didn't have a lot of problems with indiscipline. The boys that came to Kagumo High School were very focused, knew where they wanted to go, and were very competitive in class and on the field, in drama, in all those things. So I was very happy teaching at secondary school. At college, it was different. I got exposed to teaching techniques, teaching the trainers on techniques of teaching, particularly young children. This is now in primary school. So that prepared me for the life that I'm now living at the moment.
Okay. So when did you decide to get into business?
I like to say clearly that I never decided to go into business. I never looked at starting a school as a business. I did not go into starting that school, Mount Kenya Academy, to make money. That was the last of my thoughts. The most important thing I wanted to do was to offer quality education, because I had observed and witnessed how our kids were not getting the best in terms of particularly co-curricular activities, in terms of music, in terms of swimming, in terms of French things. I wanted to expose them to, to other skills except the examination subjects. So I went into it, to develop that talent in a child, as opposed to, making money. So in fact, up to this day, I've never thought of what I'm doing as a business. No, I've thought about what I'm doing as serving a community and giving something special, to that community in terms of education. Yeah.
So I was reading somewhere, an alumni from MKE had written about how they joined the school, and they were saying that they joined that school because the parents realized that there were not going to be corporal punishments in that school as much as the other schools were giving the corporal punishments. So what's your view on that?
That's what we were running from. Because our children went to a good school next door, near my school. It was a very good school. But, slowly by slowly, it was evident that teachers believed that the way to punish was to beat children. And then the other thing that I was very unhappy with, the classes were too big. You went into a school where classes were up to 30, up to 40, where children did not get the special attention. Yeah. Yes, it's true. Parents were running away from their children being, punished that way. I believe that discipline is important in schools, but there are many, many ways of instilling discipline. And discipline is not about beating. Discipline is about teaching a child to make their own decision and developing an inner authority for every individual, so that you are able to decide for yourself what is good and what is bad. So what we are instilling is values, a value system that helps you then as you move along to know whether I'm being watched or not being watched. This is not good. Yeah. So yeah, it's true. We don't believe it. We have forms of other forms of punishment. We do things like you're writing pages of saying, I will not do this again 100 times or something like that. Mm-hmm. Or you help them to appreciate and to say for themselves, this is not right. If they are being unkind, for example, to another child, but not beating children, not that kind of punishment.
Okay, that's good to hear, because I don't know if you've heard about the BBC documentary that was released some time back on corporal punishment, and yeah, students were really, really suffering.
It's still being done. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Now moving away from teaching and MKA. What are those things that you tried before you became a teacher? Because you told us you tried some other things in between.
Yes, I got a job when I finished Form 6 at Alliance. I got a job to train as a secretary. I was given a part-time job by Pfizer, a company called Pfizer, that still exists today, through a friend or a relative of my husband's. And I did that for 6 months. And it was interesting, just learning how to type, and all those things. But I wasn't happy with that. That wasn't me. From there, when I got my son, I was given a job in a bank, in the Kenya Commercial Bank, as what are they called? Those people that, the teller, as a teller. Yes, and I did that for a while, I think almost for a year, and they were very happy with my work. In fact, they wanted to take me for further training in the UK, and I turned it down. And then at that point, what I wanted was a training, some form of training, because my father was insisting that you can't just work, you've got to be trained in something. But I wanted a training that would not take me from my family for too long. And that's how the teaching, became attractive.
Okay. So now, because out here, when I Googled your name, people are calling you a businesswoman. Could you clarify that apart from Mount Kenya Academy?
Yeah, the reason they call me a businesswoman, because, there are a lot of academies that have come up. And a lot of the academies that have come up, honestly, have come up as businesses. And so I don't take offense when people call me a businesswoman. But I think, for me, teaching, like I did from the beginning, has never been a form of business. And in fact, when we started the Mount Kenya Academy at the beginning, I started it because some of the parents that were Muzungu parents, actually, a lot of them were either Americans or British people working around here, wanted a good school for their children, where there was no corporal punishment, for example, and where the children were allowed to learn at their own pace. So there was individual attention given. And so that if your child was not necessarily top of the class, we would find something else that can make them feel good about themselves. So they taught me, they're the ones that taught me how to spread the experiences in the learning, environment, so that you are taking care of needs of each child. It was not about money. For most of the Muzungus that I employed, they didn't earn a salary because there wasn't any money to pay them. And my husband was unhappy with me because he said, "What are you doing? Why are you, doing things that are not going to give us a better life?" But he was very, very supportive and continued to support me. So it was almost like, like a harambe, where people come together. We're going to start a school, and these are the values that we are going to instill. This is what we are looking at. I'm going to give this. You're going to give this. I'm good at reading. I'm good at art. So I'm going to do this. We did this, and they brought their children, and so we started Mount Kenya Academy that. Okay. And I happened to be the beneficiary because I was then running the Nyeri kindergarten. And the first class of students at Mount Kenya, of what became Mount Kenya Academy, was started at the Nyeri kindergarten. Right?
Yeah. Okay. Now, still on Mount Kenya Academy, was there a time where you felt like, wow, did I get into this business on my own because it's so difficult to run? Was there a time that you felt like
many times. You come into the end of the month, you don't have money for salaries. Yeah? And I used to dread that moment when I would come to my husband, find out when he was in a good mood and say, you know what? We have run out of money and we don't have money to pay teachers. You can't not pay teachers. The Europeans that I had were not a problem because their husbands had good jobs. But I had Kenyan teachers, and they depended on that money. And so he would grudgingly say, "You got to run a business." That's the one who kept saying he was a businessman himself. He said, you cannot run a school that is not supporting itself. So yes, so many times. And sometimes it's when you are frustrated because you are told this registration has got to be done, and you are wondering now, like when they started this registration of expatriates, where you had to get a work permit, and you are pleading for a work permit, and you need that teacher badly, and you are of course frustrated because you are saying, "Look, this woman is giving so much to these children. Everybody can see." But yes, there have been moments like that. There have been many.
Okay.
Yes.
So what kept you moving apart
the
from
children,
your husband?
the children. You look at those children and how eager they are to learn. And you'll do anything possible to make that learning continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now, away from Mount Kenya Academy, are there institutions that have your name attached to them?
We are doing a lot of community work as well. Because we believe that we don't want to be an island in ourselves, that if this learning is so good, you need to offer it to others who are not necessarily able to pay the fees that you're charging. So we have several programs that we have. The first one we have that I am very, very attached to is a reading program where we give books, library books. We have established libraries with the help of a friend of mine from America called Kemenix, who passed away last year. God rest her soul in peace. But we started this program of establishing libraries in public schools and have done that now in 12 schools around us.
Oh, wow.
We have the ones that are next door to us are Kirimara and Chania. We even have given books to Nyeri Primary School. We have done that in Kingogo, and we've done a lot of that work in Kieni as well. So that we have done, and we started with it. We just started by just giving them books, and then we would buy crates, and the books would be moved from one room to the other in these crates. But now we found donors to give us money to construct libraries. So we have constructed libraries, 12 libraries in the area around us. That's one. That's very, very rewarding. Although it's a challenge, but it's rewarding. I said to my children, now that I am sort of retired from school, that's what I want to make sure that it's happening. Because I've gone to schools where the books are there, but they're not being read. And I just want to make sure that's working. The other one that we have done that is also very rewarding is a feeding program. We have fed children at Kirimara Primary School and at Chania Primary School, the schools that are next door to us, since 2009. Since 2009, we've given them a plate of food at lunchtime, and then later on, 3-4 years later, we started giving them a porridge. So now we give them a porridge at 11, and then we give them lunch at 1. And this lunch is through donors, friends of Mount Kenya Academy. People who call themselves friends of Mount Kenya Academy. I just say, sometimes it's prayer, because every year I keep wondering, are we going to get a donor for this year, for this food? And since 2009, we've never lacked a donor for this food.
That's God.
Yeah, yeah. So that's God. And then the other thing that we do, which is also has become I feel so gratified about, is starting a form of microfinance program for the women in the Presbyterian churches around us, starting with this one next door, which is called Chaka. Chaka, we have 30 women that we give loans as Mount Kenya Academy of now up to about 300,000 to grow their small businesses. And the business we're talking about are maybe second-hand clothes. There's one with a hair salon. There's somebody who works in a quarry. There's somebody who's got a pottery. It's those businesses. And when we started giving them, we were doing only 20,000. But now we are able to give a lot more. But the Chaka women have never one time defaulted. The payments are done. We charge 2% interest, which is plowed back into the kit, in the kitty, so that they can grow their businesses. Yes. So that is very also, it's been very rewarding.
Okay.
We get nothing out of it, but we manage it because somebody has to manage the money. The other one that is important is also we built a police post just next to the school, Mount Kenya Academy, just outside. As you go into the school, you drive into the school, there's a police post. We did that because we wanted to make the area around us secure. The result is that if you go into that place, you can't believe it now. There are so many palatial homes because people now feel secure. So I think, there are a lot of other things that we have done, but I find that those are, give me a lot of pleasure just to sit back and think about them.
All right. I feel like those are more of your personal projects, but not your personal projects, but MKA personal projects in terms of community development. What can you also advise other companies and other institutions in terms of the same?
I think people need to look around and see the needs of the community where they live, because it's very easy to be very comfortable, to grow your family, and forget that the way to grow a country is by those who have a little extra sharing it. And I think there's something called, the social responsibility programs now that are being done by a lot of companies. So that has grown. And I think this is where we need to go. I think everybody, no matter how little you have, because sometimes it's not the money, it's not the food, it's not the things you've done. Sometimes it's something very, very small. Share your opinion, or have some hygiene techniques with the person next door to them, to you, in whatever way. Extending a little help is important. The way that I started getting very involved in these things is when I was looking at schools. Because when we started Mount Kenya Academy, during the first 2 years, we toured a lot of schools. We went to Turi, we went to RVA, Rift Valley Academy, we went to the American school in Nairobi. That was very good. They gave us computers even, because we were looking for ideas. And every time I drove into these schools, I was aware of the fact that you are driving through a very needy area. And then you get into these doors, and heavens, these kids have everything and more than they need. And that's what started me thinking. I said, I don't want to start a school like that. These are my people. So I want them also to share on, even in a small way, in the success of what you are, what you are creating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It seems like MK is creating a very healthy community around them.
Yes.
And I hope it spreads, because you have really good initiatives in terms of community building.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do.
All right. Are there any other businesses any business that you own?
My late husband was a businessman. So he, for example, ran the trout farm in Kentrout. They had a beer distribution business here. Mm-hmm. In fact, they started by distributing, they were the agents of BAT, because he used to work for BAT as an accountant. Mm-hmm. And then the company decided that they wanted young graduates to come and start distributing the cigarettes in the different areas. So they appointed them as agents in the mountain region, which meant Nyeri, Embu, Meru, all that area. And what they did was distribute cigarettes. So they would have a station or a shop where all these cigarettes, but it was very highly supported by the company, mm-hmm. So financially. And so doing that, then they started looking at other businesses. They went into, I said, beer distribution. They went into Deacons, for example. They are the ones that own Deacons, although it didn't end very well, but they ran that business for a while. They invested in coffee, in the Muiga coffee estate, stuff like that. Yes. So the fact that he was a businessman also means that I got involved in doing what he was doing.
All right.
Yeah.
Now that you are retired from school and from some of the businesses, do your children help in running them?
Yes. My son took over as soon as after my husband died, mm-hmm. and is doing the things that my husband used to do. They're also doing school right now. Between Tony, my son, and Betty, they are getting more and more involved with school. Okay. So that's working well, and that's why I can sit here and rest and retire.
And retire.
Yes.
Peacefully. Apart from your children, is there anyone else who helps you run these businesses?
Yes, because they are run by professionals. Mm-hmm. Teaching at a school is run by the principal. There's a principal, there's a headmaster, there are trained teachers, there's a caterer, there's a nurse, all those people are running. They are actually running the business. So what you do is to encourage, support. You are just a support mechanism so that the business continues to run. And of course, to make sure that it is also running as a business so that you are able to pay your teachers and your staff, because you don't want to default. Yeah. And that's where they come in. And also to maintain the standards. That is a very, very crucial area for me, because maintaining standards in an educational institution is not easy, because you are employing different people and they're coming from different areas and they all have different backgrounds, and their idea of standards, quality is different. So it is like you have to retrain them and help them to understand what it is you are looking at and what you want.
Could also say it's difficult because you are having children who are moving out and others are coming in.
Every year.
So you have different batches to deal with every year.
Every year. But I think also that's the beauty of it, that you're dealing with a group of children that go through, like now, earlier it used to be they leave the kindergarten, they come into standard 1, and then they leave in standard 8. And they go to other schools, they go to Alliance, they go to Nyeri High School, because you are also trying to get them to pass the exams so they can get into the schools of their choice. But now it's easier now with a secondary school. You look at them and you talk to them and you say, how do you feel now? Because you are the same child. I show them photographs of themselves coming when they are 6 years old, or when they are 3 years old at the kindergarten, and say, that was me. Yeah, and you can now say you have shaped their lives. You really have contributed to who they are, because it's been a long journey. Yeah,
I can count that as a reward that you get.
Yes.
From running this MK.
Yes.
Any other reward that you get?
Making friends. Yeah, because it's a social thing also. Because you get friends, you get to be friends with with parents. We have luckily for us, we have admirers from every part of the world. So we have pulled people to come and participate in what we are trying to do. For example, let me give you an example. Like we have a chapel at the school, which is called Grace Chapel. It was a donation from a lady who just came to visit. She was touring Kenya. She knew of a friend who was teaching at Mount Kenya Academy, an American lady, and she looked at our artwork that was displayed on the bulletin boards done by the children. And she said, this is in Kenya, in this part of the world, and this is the artwork that is as good as any in an American school. So she went back and she wrote to us and said, I really admire you. Is there something I can do that you don't have, that I can contribute to? And she's a very, very strong member of the First Presbyterian Church of Atlanta, Georgia. And I said, there are a lot of things we don't have. We don't have a hall, we don't have an art room, we don't have this. And then she wrote back and said, I think I'll give you a chapel. And she came and she built Grace Chapel. Beautiful place of worship.